Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this session. Today, this lecture is going to be on the history of Amazon Web Services so far. So, before we begin, I would like to tell you an example. So, you won't be ever going to go in an exam and be asked, like, what year was EC2 created or what year was S3 created directly. So, this session is actually just to give you a sort of context of where AWS was, where it is now, and where it is going to go, and why it is so important to learn AWS. So, why is AWS so powerful? You may ask who this person is. Well, this is Andy Jassy. He is the CEO of Amazon Web Services, and he has famously told that invention requires two things: the ability to try a lot of experiments and not having to live with the collateral damage of failed experiments. Now I will give you an example. Suppose you want to start a business to promote your product. You don't have much technical knowledge and infrastructure to set up your application. Here, serverless computing comes into picture. You try to do everything serverlessly. You literally have no budget to build the platform, and with almost very less money in the bank. So you go to and use AWS and build a platform that scales automatically with demand for little to no run cost. And that's the magic of serverless. We will get into what serverless means throughout the rest of this course. Now going back before serverless. Uh, when With the invention of AWS itself, it meant that startups could go and try out new ideas. And if it didn't work, or they, didn't meet the criteria, they provisioned the wrong resources. So, like, you could go in and terminate the resources because it didn't meet your criteria and all. You didn't, so basically, like, you didn't have to live with the failed damage and bear the cost. So, before AWS or cloud for the matter, what used to happen is that you would go and you would get a server and you would get it from providers. Here you would be locked in like a 3 to 5 year contract. So if you made a mistake, that was it. Means you have to live with that for 3 years or 5 years unless your contract ends. You were stuck with the entire amount. The money would be frozen and all. So, and you also there were some terms and conditions like you couldn't necessarily get out of it with ease. They would hold you to your contract and all. And also like renting a physical server is also expensive. And with even purchasing servers for startups, if you are purchasing say like 3 web servers, 2 database servers, some switch, firewall, load balancers, you would be probably looking to be around like 10 to 15,000 dollars of expense just for starting up. Also, there was an issue with, means few years back, say like 10 to 20 years back, there was issue like provisioning of the hardwares. So like if you say like if you needed, let's say like 50 GB of space, so you have to contact the vendor or the hardware stores. They would try to manufacture it, then you would get shipped, and then you would be able to attach it to the physical servers and start the processes. So it was like time consuming and all. You have to plan ahead and all. So proper planning was also required. And now when like cloud came, they started provisioning virtual machines, and you could know you just go log into the server and you just click on the VM and it would be provisioned instantly with like just a click of a button. And you could just run the virtual machine for a couple of minutes and then terminate it. So like if you wanted to test some code or something, like if it works on particular scenario, So you can just build the machine and use it and then terminate it. So you will be only billed for the period of amount that you use. No. So like it is like now basically very much easier to do experimentations and all, you know. So like that is one of the biggest features of provided by cloud support and all. So let's go on to a brief bit of history about AWS. It all began in 2003. The current CEO and the executives were discussing about ideas. So when they realized the strength of their infrastructure by combining their agile hardware with tools, they thought like they could build a OS for the internet. So by 2005, 2004, the idea of AWS had been fully made. A ready-made IT solution that can be, leased as a service. So any provider could take advantage of the cloud environment and, provide the solutions and all, host it and all. In 2006, AWS was officially born and launched few of the services like storage services S3 or SQS as a simple queue service, Elastic Compute Cloud, EC2, etc. In 2007, AWS integrated with Dropbox and created cloud-based storages. By 2010, Amazon relational databases were created and it also supported scalability. In 2013, Amazon introduced Virtual Desktop and as an add-on to its public cloud offerings. In 2015, AWS became market leader in infrastructure as a service section. In 2016, AWS became the largest public cloud in the world. Between 2015 to 17, Amazon created numerous services to provide application support, mostly notable being the managed service provider, MSP partner program in short. So yeah, and also currently there have been many boom in the industries with regards to AI, ML, and game development, etc. So Amazon has also invested a lot in these sections as well. So there is always some development. Okay, hello Cloud Gurus, and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to look at the AWS platform from a 10,000 foot overview. So now this is a real photo. Most of you may or may not know this, but this is a photo that was taken in February of 2018. This is when Elon Musk sent his Tesla rover to Mars. It actually overshot Mars and went to the asteroid belt. You can see on the screen it says "Don't panic." So we are actually going to have a look at AWS, and we will be going to have a brief, very high number of services. So I would request you out to do not stress out because there's a lot of services. We do not need to know each and every single services to pass the exam, and it is also not possible to know them all since there are always some new services are added or something modifications are going on in each and every time. So we will be only focusing on those services which are important from the certification point of view. So let's go and have a look at the AWS console. And this is what it looked like. And basically, so what EC2 is, what Lambda is, what S3 is. So we have got things like machine learning, we have got workmail, we have got whole bunch of new services that are being added, like Elastic Transcorder, for example, and all. And these services actually aren't all that relevant to exam, but I go through and explain what they were anyway. So we are getting more and more of those services. So let's have a look at what console looks like today. So this is what the console looks like today. Don't worry, later we will go back to look how you can sign up to the console using free tier. So if you haven't already signed up, I will show you how to do that a bit later. And if you want to see all the services, you can scroll and go click on services. And uh, if you see, there are a lot of services, you know. So in this lecture anyway, we will be just going to go through and just talk about the high level services. So compute, storage, databases, migration and transfers, etc. And we are going to look at the platform from that perspective. And then we will show you what is relevant to the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate exam. One other thing I will show you is up here. You can change what region you are in, and we are going to have a look at what the different regions are and what is the differences between a region and an availability zone. For rest of this course, I would recommend that you use US East region. The reason for that is that this is the oldest region. The services usually don't roll out to each and every region at the same time, so they are rolled out in a phase or a batch and based upon the some criterias as well. So yeah, usually this is where all the new services are made available first. This is also the region that actually goes down most as also. So when you are building your production workloads, maybe use US East, Ohio, or some other region. You know, the Virginia region is a bit, you know, basically used the most. So, yeah. And here also the region sometimes goes down a year, you know, for maintenance activities and all. So, yeah. So let's have a look at the AWS high-level services. And we will start with the global infrastructure. The global infrastructure is what we have just been talking about. It's the region around the world in which AWS is based. On top of the global infrastructure sits a whole bunch of high-level services. So we have got compute like might be EC2, might be Lambda, etc. And we are going to cover those off in the course. Storage, for which we have got like S3 and all. So this is where you put files into the buckets. We have got different services in there like EFS, etc. also. Databases. So this could be relational databases such as RTS. This could be non-relational databases as well, like DynamoDB, etc. Migration is a way of getting things to and from AWS, like from on-premise to AWS or some from AWS to on-premise servers, etc. It includes things like Snowball, etc. and also yeah. Then there is network and content delivery. So it is basically one of the most sort of fundamental part of AWS. So things like VPC as well as CloudFront. Then there's CDN, etc. Those are also part of network. Developers tools is also there, so it is not actually necessary for our cloud solution architect associate exam. It is basically for developer associate exam. Then there is robotics, blockchains, and satellites. So there are many things that were recently launched. So those are also there. Then there is an important topic, basically management and governance. We will cover that as well. So it is important from uh, you know the examination point of view. Then there is machine learning. So this is all the sort of AI, etc. Many uh, cloud-based solutions are also there. For this certified solutions architect, exam, they may ask you a question about one or two services, but you just don't need to know a lot about these services. Just a brief overview, and also it should be enough for you. We also got analytics, we also got security and compliance, security, identity and compliance, where we start to log into, identity access management. Then we are also going to, start creating our users, groups, and roles. And then AWS also provides, mobiles, which is again not relevant for the examinations. Then AR and VR. So AR is like augmented reality, and VR is virtual reality. Again, not relevant to the certification. Application integration as well as AWS cost management. So these are a bit important for you to learn. Cost management can be a part of the solution architect exam. So there may be few questions from that section. It is also, mainly covered. Basically, it is for cloud practitioner foundation, but variant of the exam, CLF 01. But still, you also need to know a bit about that. Then we have customer engagements, business applications, desktop streaming, IoT, and game development, which are again not relevant to the exam. So let's go ahead and start with the fundamentals. And let's look at AWS global infrastructure. So what's the difference between a region and availability zone and an edge location? We will start with the global infrastructure. So there's currently 20 regions and 60 availability zones around the world. And there's going to be more regions and more availability zone being added as and when there is a requirement, and they're also being announced. And you're never going to be tested on number of regions and availability zone, but it is important to understand the difference between them and also where they are basically. So this like before we look at region, let's look at this. This is a data center, and some of you may have seen data centers before, and some of you may not have. And an availability zone is essentially just a data center. So that's what I want to think of an availability zone as. So an availability zone is a facility somewhere out in the country, or it could be in the city, and inside that facility is a whole bunch of computer stuff. So we've got servers, we got SNs, we got switches, firewalls, load balancers, we got storage, etc. So basically anything related to cloud resides in our data center. So data center is just a building filled with servers and cloud related tools. And an availability zone is essentially a data center. Now, an availability zone actually may be several data centers clubbed together. Even if they are really close together, they are going to be counted as one availability zone. So one availability zone could be two or three data centers that are all within a couple of miles from each other. That way, if there is a flood or natural disaster, it might take out all three facilities. So it might take out that availability zone, but you will have another availability zone that will be, like a 50 to 100 mile away from the one that is being impacted. So you're going to have different availability zones in different regions. So now you may ask what is a region? So a region is simply a geographical area. So each region consists of two or more availability zones. So we have the London region, we have the Northern Virginia region, we have the Oregon region, Sydney region, etc. So regions are just distinct geographical areas, and each region will always consist of two or more availability zones. And availability zone is simply a data center, and the data center is simply a building that is filled with computer stuff for cloud operations. So let's have a look at today's regions. We have got North America. North America consists of whole bunch of different regions. So you have got North Virginia, Oregon, US West. Then we have got the Central region, which is Canada. Yeah, US West is basically, for government cloud. So government cloud, you can see that uh, it's like, divided in two parts, like US West and US East. It is basically for government customers and contracts, and it is not for private or public users. So do bear that in mind. We have then got the US East, which is in Ohio, and we have got the US West, which is in Northern California. Then AWS provides a whole bunch of different, uh, you know, locations like edge locations, regions, serverities also now. So now you might be thinking, well, what's an edge location? So edge locations are endpoints for AWS, which are used for caching contents. So typically this consists of a CloudFront, which is Amazon's content delivery network, and we are going to have a look at look about CloudFront in the S3 section of the course. So let's take an example. So let's say you have got a huge file and you got a user trying to access that file from Australia. And the server that they are trying to get the file from is in New York. So basically what happens is that the user downloads it from New York and it is then cached inside the Australia edge location. And then if somebody else tries to download that file, they don't need to get a file from the New York location. They can actually get it from the edge location. So what's important is that you understand that an edge location is not a region. It is actually just a smaller location that AWS have, and it's used for caching contents. And there's always going to be more edge locations than the number of regions. Currently, there are over 150 edge locations around the world. So let's look at South America. So we've got a region in Sao Paulo. Then we've got whole bunch of different edge locations around Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo as well. Then we have the EMEA region, so Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So we've got the Irish region and many other regions. I will be attaching a link in the description which you can refer to get idea about the different regions that are supported by AWS. So what is you need to know in order to pass Certified Solution Architect Associate exam? So we had a look at all these different high-level services. We will go and explain the most relevant services throughout the course, and that will help you pass your exam. But we are not going to cover every single services. So what it is we need to know to pass the Cloud Solution Architect exam. So we don't need to know developers tools. We don't need to know robotics or blockchain or satellite. We don't need to know media services. We don't need to know mobile. We don't need to know AR, VR, application integration. We also don't need to know a lot about cost management. Just a bit of overview should be okay. We will cover cost control and AWS because it is an important part. We don't need to worry about customer engagement, business applications, and IoT or game development. So these are the high-level services that you should focus on in order to pass your exam. And of these high-level services, there's a bunch of core services. We have got security, identity, and compliance, which we are going to do in later sections. We have compute, we have storage, we have database, we have network and content delivery, So compute is mostly just around EC2 and Lambda. Storage is going to be all around S3. Database is mostly will be as on DynamoDB, and we will also talk a bit about Redshift as well. We are going to learn what they are throughout the course. Network and content delivery is also needed. All along with we will also learn bit about Route 53, which is basically Amazon's own DNS service, as well as VPC, which is the way like virtual private cloud. So it's basically like a cloud data center, what you are going to build, where you are going to build everything. And in particular, you need to know identity and access management inside out to have a good chance of passing the certification exam. So, what are some of the exam tips? So, you have learned and huge lot of details today. Uh, you just need to understand the difference between a region and availability zone and an edge location. So a region is a physical location in the world which combines two or more availability zone, and you also have a like regions like London region, you have Sydney region, Singapore region, etc. And availability zone is one of the more discrete data centers, each with a redundant power supply, network connectivity, house and all, which is actually so, those are created in a separate facilities. And then an edge location. So edge location is just an endpoint for AWS, which is used for caching content. Typically, this consists of CloudFront, which is Amazon's cloud delivery network. And we are going to learn about that in the storage section of the course. So that's it for this lecture, guys. So this is a really quick go through about how to sign up in AWS. I'm going to show you how to sign up to the AWS platform. If you have never been to this before, you can go to aws.amazon.com. I will also give the link in the description section for your reference. If you have already visited it before, it will say sign in. So go ahead and click up here. Your skin may look a bit different, depends on like what region or location from which you're viewing it. So we go ahead and click on the create an AWS account. This will take you to this landing page. Uh, you can either click here to uh, sign in, and then you can create a new AWS account, and that will take you to the same landing page. So it says create an AWS account. We will be clicking here. Here it will ask you to enter your email address, provide your details, and continue the wizard. Once completed, your identity will be created and will be verified successfully. You may receive a email for verification in your from the account from the email ID with which you are trying to sync to. So yeah, just click on continue and complete the setup. Now you will be prompted for the support plans. We have few of the support plans here. So we have got basically 3 or 4 different types of support plans. We got our basic plan, our developer plan, our business plan, and enterprise level support plan. I would go ahead and click on the basic. This can be very popular uh, popular topic from the examination point of view. So they may ask you like the difference between means what are the features and services provided in each of the plans. and the difference between the response time, SLA, and all. So yeah, essentially, if you are ever asked for wanting a technical, question like you're going to need an enterprise level support, and you will be like spending $10,000 a month. So you should like choose an enterprise support plan. Otherwise, I would suggest you to choose a basic or free tier of the AWS services. It is expensive and you will be charged a lot. So do keep that in mind. So that will then load you to this screen. Welcome to AWS. You can personalize your experience. I'm just going to move ahead and click on the sign into the console button, and there you go. So you're now registered with AWS and you are able to access AWS console, and you will need to be able to sign in to do the rest of the activities. So go ahead and sign in, and let's move to the next lecture. If you have any questions, please post them in the comment section. Thank you and have a great day. Thanks for watching this section. It really helps us and motivates us to bring new contents for you guys. Uh, so if you have any questions, please post them in the comment section. So today we discussed about the history of AWS, AWS the 10,000 foot journey overview, and how to sign up for AWS. I will also be posting the reference materials and links in the description below. You may go through them. So, thanks for watching this video. Do let us know for if any feedbacks are there, and see you next time. Thank you.